Yo, what's up guys? Chase the Bro here, and welcome to yet another Dark Souls 3 build video. Today this build is going to be centered around the Harald Curved Greatsword, and I'm kind of using it as a way to showcase the new DLC weapon as well. The build itself is a pure strength build with just enough faith to be able to use the blessed weapon buff. Ever since patch 1.13, all the Ultra Greatswords and Curved Greatswords have got an amazing hyper armor buff, so I thought I'd create builds that are more centered around those weapons for the time being. And let me just say that this weapon is a monster. It has amazing range, and nothing can stagger me when I'm R1ing. I am actually in love with this weapon at the moment. And that's saying something. I never actually use Curved Greatswords. I've never had a build centered around them just because I don't like the way they fight. I find them slow, and before the patch, any straight sword would outdo me. Now that the poise is working the way it's supposed to, I can see how these weapons were intended to be played, and honestly, they work really well with my playstyle. As well, infusions have actually been buffed, so I decided to infuse this weapon with a heavy gem, seeing as I am a pure strength build, and it scales all the way up till my stat is at 66. The damage return per point is still 3 to 4, all the way up to 66, so I'd recommend going all the way there. When infused with a heavy gem, this weapon receives an S scaling in strength, and actually does more damage than it would if it was refined with a 40-40 build. So, good. Finally a weapon that's actually based for a strength build. Now getting into the moveset of the Harald Curved Greatsword, it is that of a regular Curved Greatsword, so its standard R1 is a sideways slash, and its R2 is going to be a vertical heavy slash forward. If you happen to miss with the heavy attack, you are vulnerable for a couple seconds afterwards, so make sure if you're going to be using that attack that you're sure it's going to connect. If you're someone like me who hasn't used Curved Greatswords that much, then the weapon is definitely going to take some getting used to. The initial startup of even the light attacks is slower than most weapons, but the poise you receive is higher than most weapons, so just try to keep that in mind as you're fighting, and try to use the hyper armor to your advantage. There are definitely some situations where that has saved my life. This weapon is great for even 2v1 or 3v1 situations, just because of the hyper armor and the fact that it does so much damage. The regular AR you're going to receive when you have 66 strength and a heavy infusion on this weapon is 629. Now that's some amazing physical damage, which is exactly why I opted for buffing it with the blessed weapon, because it increases the physical damage by 7.5% I believe, and blessed weapon increases the physical damage. It doesn't add split damage, so everything you're doing with the weapon buff is all physical damage. Once you've applied the blessed weapon buff, I'm pretty sure your AR jumps up to 670 something, which is more than enough to 3-shot everybody in the arenas. After all, we do have unembered health, and I have rarely fought anyone who's survived more than 3 swings of this sword. As well, the weapon art on this thing is a monster. As you just saw, it's a slam down attack, so if you initiate it with the left trigger, you begin an initial slam down, and you have the choice to either pull the right trigger and follow it up for as long as you wish, so you can hold the right trigger and he'll keep slamming down the sword, or you can finish it off with an R1 where he jumps a little bit higher than average and slams down one final time. This is definitely one of the most unique weapon arts from all the DLC weapons. I've never seen anything like it, and if you fight someone and they're actually in a small space, you can land more than 5 hits with the weapon art. You also have a pretty decent amount of hyper armor when initiating the weapon art, so don't be afraid to use it if someone's just swinging at you and you know you can trade and do much more damage than them. It's always worth it. So let's just review what this weapon is capable of. It has amazing hyper armor, its AR can reach almost 700, physical damage that is, and it stun locks pretty well. Although it is a slow weapon, so you definitely have to get used to the spacing, and you have to get used to relying on the hyper armor of it as well. But other than that, I'd say it's really overall a great PvP weapon. I think that was a pretty worthy showcase, don't you guys? So I'm going to take you on over to my stats and equipment now. So like I said earlier guys, this is a pure strength build, although you do need a minimum requirement of 18 dexterity in order to wield the Harald Curved Greatsword. I recommend hitting 66 strength because that is the hard cap, and any further points will not give you any damage returns, but the damage returns all the way up till 66 are actually worth your points. And it gives you an AR of 629, which is pretty amazing guys. If you want to have the blessed weapon infusion like I did, which adds 7.5% physical damage, you're going to need 15 faith, seeing as that is a requirement for the blessed weapon buff. The rest of your point allocation is really up to you. I liked wearing the Ring Knight set, so I needed a little bit of vitality. And after that, I just poured the rest of my points into Vigor and Endurance. And they're actually at 34. It just appears to be 39 because I'm wearing the Prisoner's Chain. Oh, and as well, you need 1 attunement slot, so you need at least 10 attunement. But the rest is up to you guys. How you allocate it other than that is really up to you. I like having an even health and stamina pool, so I try to keep them close to each other. and I didn't know where else I should pour points, so I thought that was pretty much the best that I could do. And that's pretty much it for the stat allocation, guys, so I'm going to bring you on over to the equipment. So I am using the heavy Harald Curved Greatsword because it has an S scaling with strength, which is what this build is centered around, and it does more damage, like I said, than it would if it was refined with a quality build. I also always like to have a parry shield just in case I'm fighting a spammer, so I do keep a simple Castus on me. It rebuilds my mana slowly, so that's another bonus, and it is a parrying tool, and it's extremely light, so it doesn't affect my weight load. I needed a talisman, so I used the Sunlight Talisman plus 10, because it only has a 14 requirement in Faith, which works perfectly with the build. As I said, I'm wearing the Ring Knight set, but I'm using the Firelink Helm. I thought it's a nice little switch up and it looks pretty fresh. And in order to wear all that armor and gear, I needed the Prisoner's Chain, which used to have a pretty negative effect when you wore it. It would lower your damage absorption by a pretty high amount. Now it barely changes it at all, and it ups your natural defense because it ups your vitality. So 5 levels in health, endurance, and vitality are definitely worth the tiny amount of damage absorption you lose when wearing this ring. I'm wearing the Chlorine Ring plus 3 because it recovers your stamina pretty quickly. I'm also wearing the Ring of Favor plus 3 because it increases your HP, stamina, and equip load, which is definitely needed for this build. And in the final ring slot, you can put whatever you desire. I just really like the Life Ring plus 3 because it raises my maximum HP by 10%, which is definitely worth the use of a ring slot. But other than that, guys, that's pretty much the build. Let me know what you guys think of the weapon in the comments, as well as the build stat layout. I always like your input. If you enjoyed the video, then like the video. It helps my channel out a lot, guys. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe. There's tons of Dark Souls 3 content on the way. And if you are subscribed, ring that bell. It will let you know as soon as my videos are released, and you can be the first ones to watch them. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching and supporting my channel. It means the world to me. So thank you guys, and I'll see you next time, which is probably tomorrow.